submitted to him. In the petition, the two MPs are claiming that the reasons given were wholly extraneous and not legally tenable. Representing the two Congress MPs, Kapil Sibal said that Venkaiah Naidu's decision should be set aside for being arbitrary and for being illegal. Abha Singh, who's a lawyer, who's joining us now live, along with Swapnil Kothari, also who is joining us live for a very quick reaction on this. First up, going straight across to Abha Singh. Abha Singh, if you could throw some light on how this is now a bit of a constitutional crisis as far as the judiciary is concerned, because the highest pillar of democracy happens to be the judiciary, and when something of this nature transpires, the public perception in the judiciary, which is your last resort, completely goes for a toss. Before we get into the details of the plea today.
You're very right, because the public perception is that Supreme Court is embroiled in a lot of fight among the judges. A person, common man, comes to the court with the last hope of justice, and when the judges themselves are not above board, then the faith of the public will not be there, a person who's coming there. Coming to the fact that when the PIL was mentioned before Justice Chillameshwar, they could have waited till today before making that constitutional bench. The normal procedure is that it is usually a 2-member bench or a 3-member bench which looks into the matter and then decides to set up a constitution bench. And even without it being mentioned with the CJI, if a 5-member constitution bench has been set up, which again supersedes the senior most 4 judges and takes from number 6 to 10, clearly shows that all is not well. And when the CJI allegations are on him, the impeachment process is being questioned, that how could Venkaiah Naidu reject that request of the MPs, that motion passed by more than 60 members of parliament. Then the issue is the CJI should have recused himself. He should have recused himself to maintain the integrity and the sanctity of the Supreme Court, should have said, let this fall, or whatever happens, then I would join back. Rather than that, he himself makes a constitution bench when the legal tenets say you cannot be a judge in your own cause. And
so you're saying there's a conflict of interest. You're saying there's an absolute conflict of interest as far as deciding the constitutional bench is concerned. I'm going to go over to Swapnil Kothari as well. Swapnil Kothari, are you in agreement with Abha saying that the CJI deciding the constitutional bench, when the matter is up for hearing against him, he should be perhaps going on a leave, or perhaps he should not be the one deciding and the senior most next in line perhaps should have been deciding? That's Abha Singh's opinion, so I want to check your opinion on that.
Chaiti, I disagree with Abha there for the simple reason that just as when the matter was mentioned before Justice Chillameshwar yesterday, Chillameshwar mentioned to Kapil Sibal that those days have gone where the judge cannot be in his own cause. And he said that please wait for a day. And what the Chief Justice has done has merely set up a bench. He's not hearing the case himself. And very, very appropriately so, he's appointed 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and not 2, 3, 4 and 5 for the simple reason that 2, 3, 4 and 5 had come outside and given a presser on January 12th. Not that he distrusts them, but tomorrow, if any judgment is given in favor of the CJI, then there should not be any controversy at all that even if 2, 3, 4, 5 are against him, why did you take him? You know, they may have changed their mind. They should have, you know, they deliberately gave the judgment in the favor because they wanted to be in good books with the CJI, etc., etc. So to show that complete impartiality, and because justice is not only to be done, but justice must seem to be done. That is the reason he's appointed 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10.
But Swapnil Kothari, what Abha Singh is saying, and you know what Abha Singh is trying to say perhaps is the fact that he should have reclused himself from making that decision, and the decision of constituting that bench should have been taken by somebody else, is what she's trying to say. Because you did mention a fair trial.
I understand, but that's the reason. Yeah, Chaiti, but that's the reason why I precisely mentioned what Justice Chillameshwar said. I began that with my opening remarks because he said that those days have gone when the judges cannot be in his own cause, and ultimately the CJI is the master of the roster, and even if there is a case against him, he has got full rights to set up the bench. He has got no right to sit on that bench himself, which he has been doing all along as far as all the other matters are concerned. But since it is this particular matter which concerns him, he has only set up a bench. He is not going to sit on that bench. So that is where I am in firm disagreement with Abha.
This matter was not mentioned. This matter was not mentioned before the Chief Justice of India.
Please.
No. This matter was not even mentioned before Justice of India.
Let me
All right,
Swapnil,
Abha Singh,
Precisely,
let
but
him
he's the
finish.
master
Let
of
him
the
finish. I'm
roster
coming to
at
you.
the end of the day. Yeah, may I finish?
Yes,
Abha?
yes,
Yeah,
yes. Go
thanks,
on,
Abha.
Mr. Kothari.
What I'm trying to say, not all matters have been right. Now, Chaiti, what I'm trying to say is that this particular thing was mentioned before Chelameshwar. The CJI is the master of the roster. Tomorrow, I'm looking a step ahead. If there is a particular sort of a motion of this nature, which is, or a petition in this case, which is against a particular judge, say of the High Court also, do you suggest that he has to go on leave? As you said, that should he recuse himself and go on leave, which is what Sybil said, that he should go on leave just because some 50 members think that this man is inappropriate and come out with false and baseless charges. As you rightly pointed out in your opening remarks, Chaiti, the judiciary is the last pillar, and the last thing is something, 67 years the judiciary, the Supreme Court has never been discussed, and that is what is most disgusting, that the top court of the land is being discussed today. I do not like it even being discussed, because that, given the political myopia of our country and the executive excesses and the legislative laxity, the last resort of justice is the judiciary. Frankly, let me tell you that it is the judiciary that is running this country, when the other two arms have completely and grossly failed.
This is where I'd like Abha Singh to come in. This is exactly where I'd like Abha Singh to come in, because Swapnil Kothari, a lot of other lawyers who I spoke to this morning are in agreement with your opinion. So as far as the legal fraternity is concerned, they seem to be divided on this particular issue. But Abha Singh had a point to make earlier today on CNN News18 itself. Abha, was hearing you earlier where you said we are heading towards a totalitarian state, and you did mention some sort of an insinuation of the executive interfering with the powers of judiciary, which completely retorts to the point that Mr. Swapnil Kothari just had to make.
Definitely, the reputation of Supreme Court is in tatters today. When you had Indu Malhotra and KM Joseph's name there for elevation to Supreme Court, executive accepted one, sent back the other, because he was the same judge who had reposed the central, set aside the central rule in Uttarakhand. So is this the way we are going to do it? That it will be the politicians like and dislike, which will see that which judge is going to be elevated to the Supreme Court, which judge is not going to be elevated. And Swapnil Kothari says anybody 50. Let me tell you, those 50 plus are the members of parliament. We have a democracy. It is the people who have voted them. And when those MPs, and that is the due process, if they are asking for impeachment, and not every day does an impeachment happen in this country. In the 70 years of history, this would be the second time that an impeachment has been brought in, and an impeachment against Chief Justice of India, it is unheard of. But when there are whispers in the corridor that there is corruption, when the presser says that the roster is being managed, and let me tell you, before this, you could mention a PIL in any bench. It is now under this Chief Justice of India only that these things have been centered only under one person. Why? Why is there being a totalitarian sort of a system being set up? And the democracy talks of a very strong independent judiciary, but the way things are, the way Venkaiah Naidu on his own decided not to set up a committee to look into this, when for triple talaq, even after Lok Sabha had passed, this Raj Sabha sent it to the select committee. At that time, they did not think that there were Muslim divorced women who were suffering, and it was their human rights.
Right.
There you
Abha Singh, I've taken a point on that.
Send it to a select committee, but for such an important point.
Absolutely. No, I got your point on that. You know, on that particular point, we also have our correspondents waiting by to give us updates from the Supreme Court. We'll go to them in just about a bit. But since Mr. Swapnil Kothari is also with us, Advocate Kothari, you heard out Abha Singh right there. As far as the process of removal of a CJI is concerned, being a lawyer, if you could walk us through it, the removal motion is signed by 50. And on what grounds do you think that Venkaiah Naidu has rejected this particular removal without a judicial review? You think that is fair?
Yes, absolutely, Chaiti, for the simple reason that this motion was initiated under the Judges Inquiry Act. Section 3(1)(b) of the Judges Inquiry Act is very clear that the Venkaiah Naidu, the Rajya Sabha chairman, it's clearly mentioned that the language of the Section 3(1)(b) is very clear. The framers of the Constitution were dreamers at that point in time and knew that there would be some executive interference, and a little bit of a slugfest between the executive and the judiciary is always welcome, but not to the extent that it has gone to. So let me just tell you what it says is that after he consults the people that he wishes to, and after considering the materials before him, he will either admit or deny the motion. What that clearly means is he's not supposed to check whether there are 50 signatures and whether they've been signed by the 50 members of the Rajya Sabha. He is supposed to go into the merits of that right at that point in time, and then admit or deny the motion. Now, to point out, this is not the second time that the impeachment motion has been done. It has been 3 cases before: Dinakaran, Soumitra Sen and Ramaswamy. And this is the first time that the CJI has been involved in this sort of a thing. And this is absolutely a political retaliation for the Justice Loya's matter. Now, also to come as far as the appointment of Justice Joseph is concerned, and where the government gave their reasons. Now, the Supreme Court deferred the matter. They said that let's defer this, let's postpone this for whatever reasons they thought it fit. Obviously, there must be some merit in what the government has said, that why, some 43rd in seniority, Mr. Joseph, should not be elevated to the Supreme Court. So if the Supreme Court has had a doubt, it can always rest and say that let's defer this decision to a certain point in time.
No, my question was, couldn't Venkaiah Naidu put this to vote? Couldn't Venkaiah Naidu put this to vote before dismissing that motion?
He doesn't need to, because that is what the 3(1)(b) clearly spells out, Chaiti. It says that he's got the entire prerogative to decide. Now, that is exactly, now, if he decides the other way, which is what he has done, which is against the people who have petitioned, that is against the petitioners, that he denies the motion, the petitioners have the right to approach the Supreme Court. So they've done that. Now, I know exactly what fate awaits them. Today, this petition...
Go on.
This petition is going to be dismissed.
All right, so we have two contrarian views coming up. Abha Singh on one side, you've got Swapnil Kothari on the other side. We also have Amit Khemka, who is joining us, who is an advocate. Mr. Khemka, you've been hearing the opinions of Abha Singh and Swapnil Kothari as well. I'm going to take up your reaction on this entire matter.
I have been saying that the president, vice president or the chairman of Rajya Sabha was actually not supposed to go into the veracity of the allegations. He was supposed to see whether the particular motion was in order, whether it it stood the test of the Section 3 of the Judges Inquiry Act, whether it was signed by the number of MPs or whatever who were required. I mean, he was not at all supposed to decide the veracity, because for that a committee was supposed to be there and the committee would have gone in and investigated it. So, for an investigation, it cannot be scuttled in the very beginning itself. So, if there are charges, if there are allegations and which are verifiable in nature, in fact, the vice president goes on to say that they were not verifiable in nature, which is on the face of it is incorrect. These all allegations were very much verifiable in nature. So the vice president's order per se, I mean, to my mind, is should not stand the judicial scrutiny. And I am very sure that the 5-judge bench, which consists of the 5 senior most judges, apart from the 4 who had gone public against the Chief Justice. So those 5 judges are bound to do justice. I have no doubt about it. And they will find this order to be not in accordance with law, because if this was the intention of the Constitution, that one person would decide whether the allegations are wrong or right, then there was no need to have such an elaborate process where, you had, I mean, they were to involve such senior people, such senior judges for the purpose and constitute a committee for the purpose of investigating the whole matter. So, there cannot be the intention of the parliament or the legislature to scuttle any investigation right at the word go. So, there I absolutely have this view that this order of the vice president is bound to be set aside by the Supreme Court.
I'm very hopeful. Point taken. Amit Khemka, Abha Singh and Swapnil Kothari, stay with us. We have Arunima joining us live from outside the Supreme Court now. Arunima, over to you for all the latest. This particular petition challenges Vice President Naidu's decision to reject the initial motion that was submitted to him. Now, the 2 MPs are claiming that the reasons given were wholly extraneous, not legally tenable. And Kapil Sibal is saying that Venkaiah Naidu's decision should be set aside for being arbitrary and illegal. What are you picking up now as far as the proceedings that are about to begin are concerned?
Well, let me just list out the facts of the matter as it exists as of this moment.
Right.
Kapil Sibal and the Congress Party MPs went to the bench headed by Justice Chelameshwar, and they were looking for some kind of a direction from Justice Chelameshwar's bench. Even before Justice Chelameshwar could decide, pass an order or give any direction, he asked them to come back on Tuesday. The CJI constituted a bench to hear this matter. In that bench, CJI is not a part, even though usually he is the one who hears such matters, but because this concerns him, he is not part of that bench. He has also not made the top 4 judges a part of that bench, obviously, because they have made their mind very clear when they went and held that press conference. The allegations some of the allegations that have been mentioned by the Congress-led opposition when they moved that motion of impeachment or removal before Venkaiah Naidu, the chairman of Rajya Sabha and the vice president, some of those grounds which are part of their petition here were mentioned there too, and the judges, Justice Chelameshwar onwards, the top 4 judges, their mind is very clear. So CJI decided that those 4 judges could also not hear the plea. Right now, the bench which has been constituted, seniority number 6 to 10, those are the judges who are hearing that plea. The sense that I get is that those judges enjoy the confidence of the Chief Justice, even though the Chief Justice has come on record a number of times and said that the Supreme Court is one. In public perception, because of the way that press conference was held, it appears that the top 4 judges are not on the same page as the Chief Justice of India, whereas the rest of them, the bench which has been constituted, that is what the lawyers here are talking about, that they appear to have the confidence of the Chief Justice of India. That's fact number 1. Number 2, the question of whether this plea will be admitted today, whether notices will be issued and further on arguments will happen, or whether at the stage of admissibility itself, the bench headed by Justice Sikri will decide that this is not a fit case and therefore it should be dismissed right away. Option number 3 is to ask the Congress MPs to redraft their motion of removal of CJI and go back. The grounds on which Venkaiah Naidu has rejected them, the judges have the option of saying that this is a legislative business, the judiciary cannot interfere in it, go back to the chairperson and amend the motions. And that's how the third option is. And let me just toss it to the guests who are with us on the panel. Coming to you first, Mr. Kothari. If out of these 3 options, not admitting at all, dismissing, asking them to go back to the Vice President and allowing them to continue to argue by issuing notice, what of the 3 options do you think are more viable right now?
Well, I think what the Supreme Court will do and should do, in my opinion, is that it should dismiss this petition right away for the simple reason that if you allow this petition even for a moment, then what it does, it opens up a Pandora's box. Tomorrow, Chaiti and you yourself, you can imagine what the situation will be. That if Venkaiah Naidu, before I come to what the situation will be, Venkaiah Naidu was right. He said that the entire complaint of all those sort of verifiable allegations was that it appears, they said that it appears that the Chief Justice, it appears. So that means they've used the very, very cautious language. It appears. So they are not sure. And the Article 124 and 217 for removal of judges, High Court and Supreme Court respectively clearly points out that it has to be proved misbehavior and approved misbehavior or approved misconduct or incapacity. So there is no question of proved here. It appears so. So you can imagine that tomorrow if a High Court judge gives a judgment which does not, is palatable to the government, then the government will start initiating the proceedings saying that it appears that this judge has done this, it appears. Please remember that in the previous 3 impeachment cases of Soumitra Sen, Dinakar and Ramaswamy, there were gross charges which were sort of should I say 60 to 70% proved, because there was clear, indication of the fact that there was excessive land beyond the income, then there was ostentatious, decoration of the house and of that nature. So, to suggest that, let an inquiry be constituted on the basis of it appears so itself sounds absolutely absurd to me. So, to say that they will say that, dismiss this and send it back for redrafting, it sounds a little difficult to me that you go ahead and redraft this motion if you want to. They might just say that, I don't know. But it sounds a little far-fetched to me. They might not just shut the door completely. They might say, go ahead and redraft it. But it's still, it looks a little bit odd to me. I mean, it may or may not be. I don't know. But I don't think this petition will stand at all. I think it should be dismissed. And if it does, stand scrutiny, I'd be very, very surprised.
Right. Abha Singh, the information that we are also getting is that it is quite possible that Kapil Sibal, who would be representing the Congress Party MPs, he could question the constitution of the bench itself.
Very true. In fact, that is the first thing he should question, that itself, on what surmises this bench was constituted. And what Swapnil was saying, he says it appears so in 72 years of India being a democracy, a free country, first time a Chief Justice of India is being impeached. So you think the parliamentarians are frivolous? You mean to say that the parliamentarians will come even for the 3 judges? It's hardly anything. So to say that they are reckless, I differ from him totally. If it is proved incapacity or misbehavior, there are issues of Prasad Education Trust, the antedating of the papers, the plot which was of it had to be returned but was returned only when he came to the Supreme Court. These are facts. Why cannot you get them investigated? And Venkaiah Naidu could have referred it to the committee. As I said, for the triple talaq, this very Raj Sabha sends it to the select committee, where you are jeopardizing the lives of the million women who would have got justice, and for this you are deciding immediately without verifying. Why could he not send it to the committee of 3 judges as prescribed? His job was only to see whether there are signatures, there are bona fide signatures of the MP, not beyond that. But Venkaiah Naidu showed himself to be a BJP member first and then a parliamentarian.
Right. Abha Singh, Amit Khemka, Swapnil Kothari, do stay on with us. We're taking a quick break, but this will be our top focus. Coming back after a very quick break. Stay with us.
Welcome back and thanks so much for staying with us. We've got some breaking news and new developments coming in right there. Top focus, of course, remains the entire matter of CJI impeachment, which we're discussing right here on CNN News 18. CJI impeachment in the Supreme Court today. Kapil Sibal is likely to question the constitution of bench, is what we've picked up. More news coming in. Arguments are going to be beginning with issues on the bench itself. Kapil Sibal will be asking for the order in which bench has been set up. Attorney General K.K. Venugopal will be attending the impeachment hearing. That's all the latest that is coming on. We've got our guests still live with us. Abha Singh, Amit Khemka, Swapnil Kothari, and of course Aruma joining us from outside the Supreme Court as well. First up, I'm going to go over straight to Abha Singh. Abha Singh, you know, Arunima was mentioning earlier as well. She was mentioning a very interesting fact about how it appears to have the confidence of the CJI, the bench, the constitution bench which has been set up, appears to have the confidence of the CJI. And this is exactly the development that is coming in. Kapil Sibal will be questioning the constitution of bench itself. Your reaction on this?
Exactly. The very fact that the 4 senior most judges do not find a place in this constitution bench itself is questionable, and that too when number 2 Justice Ranjan Gogoi, who is going to be the next Chief Justice of India, his name does not feature. Are we going to say that we don't have faith in the next Chief Justice of India? Are we questioning his integrity or his loyalties to the country? Because even when they came out for the press conference, Justice Ranjan Gogoi had the interest of the country at heart. And when here today you don't have him in that bench, is the government planning to bypass him? Is this a message that he is not going to be the Chief Justice of India? So these are the issues which really make you wonder what is happening in the Supreme Court, what low black day has come for the Supreme Court. That is issue which needs to be looked into, and Sibal is very right when he raises this issue that how it was constituted when Justice Chilameshwar said, tomorrow you come back to me. So we could not wait even for a day, and when in interest he was involved in that case, why was he showing such an hurry?
All right, Abha Singh, your point taken. I know that there's a contrarian view which will come in from Advocate Swapnil Kothari right there. Swapnil Kothari, first up, you heard out what Abha Singh had to say on this development as well. We also had a reaction earlier from Dushman Dave, who ended up saying that it's malified on the part of the CJI to assign the matter to junior judges. CJI himself cannot touch this matter. Sending it to court registrar is an appalling move. Your reaction?
Well, what Dushyan Dave and Abha Singh are saying, those are their views. I disagree with them there. Now, if I was Kapil Sibal in his position, I would definitely question As a lawyer, I would definitely question the constitution of the bench itself, for the simple reason because that's the one weapon which I have in my arm, in my hand. So I'm definitely going to use it. Now, whether it's appropriate for him to do so or not, it's a different issue. But if it was there, we often, as lawyers, we often question the jurisdiction of the court. If we find that the jurisdiction of the court, according to us, is not proper, or that is something which we may wish to challenge itself in the first place. Now, these are all legal tricks which are employed in the course of the day, especially when you argue a case. Now, as far as this particular, in my opinion, the constitution of the bench of number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is absolutely appropriate, for the simple reason that 2, 3, 4 and 5 have given a press conference, especially in which they have challenged my roster, my being the boss of the roster. So if they have challenged my being boss of the roster, which forms one part of the allegation of this particular motion, of this petition, so definitely I am not going to appoint 2, 3, 4 and 5. It doesn't mean that Ranjan Gogoi does not deserve to be the Chief Justice of India. Naturally, he deserves to be because he is the second senior most person, and unfortunately rather the third senior most, because Chailameshwar is going to retire. So definitely Ranjan Gogoi deserves to be the Chief Justice. But as far as this particular issue is concerned, this is where Ranjan Gogoi is considered to be biased, because he himself was a privy to a press conference. Now, that being said, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 are absolutely senior judges as well in the line of seniorities. He is not appointed 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15. Now, that would be a cause for concern. But to appoint the immediate ones is absolutely appropriate. Now, Dushyant Dave has in fact come out with articles in between in the Indian Express questioning the Chief Justice, and those aspects are concerned. So he's absolutely stalking in line with what he said earlier. So he's entitled to those views, and so is Prashant Bhushan. But I firmly disagree on this for the simple reason that I have full faith in the Chief Justice.
Fair enough. Swapnil Kothari in disagreement with this. Abha Singh in an absolute agreement with this. Arunima, I'm going to be coming across to you. You have all the facts with you. You're standing outside the Supreme Court. The hearing should be beginning anytime now as well. And the latest coming in is that the Kapil Sibal is likely to question the constitution of this very bench itself. And the arguments are going to be beginning with the issues on the bench itself.
Right. And I want to bring in Mr. Khemka at this point to understand the procedure, the legality, Mr. Khemka. When Kapil Sibal says that the constitution of the bench headed by Justice Sikri is problematic, what does the procedure say here? If a matter is mentioned before Justice Chailameshwar, if Justice Chailameshwar-led bench says, come back to me tomorrow, and in the interim, CJI, who has declared himself to be the master of the roster after passing that crucial order, is there any problem as far as procedure, as far as legality is concerned? Can the CJI really be questioned on the law point or in terms of procedure for constituting this bench even when Justice Chailameshwar's directions were awaited?
Arunima, let me look at it from another perspective. Mr. Kothari was saying that just because 4 of the judges came, let me look at it from another perspective, Mr. Kothari was saying that just because the 4 judges came out in open and challenged the Chief Justice's right to be the master of roster or whatever it was, they are bound to be biased. Now, let me put it like this, that a person, the Chief Justice, who is himself the subject matter of the petition, is he not likely to be biased? Why did he take upon himself to even appoint a bench in this matter? In fact, the most fair thing to do was to send it to the number 2 person. How could he presume that that all the 4 judges, if he feels that all these 4 judges are biased, then they don't have any right to be in the chair? Very frankly, then he should be starting an impeachment motion against them if he thinks that they are biased. But the fact is that
sounds like a perfect point, Mr. Kothari. Come in on that.
That's a
fairly valid point, Mr. Kothari. Respond to that. Should the CJI have recused himself from really deciding who the bench should be?
Well, that is one option which Mr. Khemka suggested, that is one option at his disposal, that he could have said that, okay, let my number 2 man, Mr. Chailameshwar, decide. That is one of the things. But as far as I think what has gone in his mind is the fact that just because there are allegations against me, I am not going to demit office just on the basis of the allegations that are 2 unproven or baseless allegations. That is one. So I am still the master of the roster. I am still going to decide at the end of the day as to who's going to sit, as far as even I am concerned. I am not going to sit on the bench myself. Now, No, it's not the question of demitting office, Mr. Khemka. It's the question of the allegation that he should be demitting office because he's not a fit man to be the to be the Chief Justice of India. That is what the entire basis of this petition is, because he's obviously
No.
No, it's not the question of demitting office. He should be leaving. There should be an impeachment. What is the meaning of impeachment, Mr. Khemka? The meaning of impeachment is that he should demit office. Absolutely, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, Mr.
But
Khemka,
Abha
is
saying,
that the
Mr. Kothari,
basis of this petition
the problem is, I would request all three of you, at the end of it, what is happening is that people who have come to the Supreme Court, in which people of this country have faith that they will give them justice, that entire, line of judges, right from Chief Justice of India down till number 10, because now 6 to 10 are part of this bench, they're all under the scanner now. Suddenly, people are questioning whether justice is being done, or is everything that the Supreme Court deciding political. And Abha saying Kapil Sibbal's conduct in questioning the bench led by Justice Sikri right now will only underline that more, that people will question, are any of the judges giving us justice?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Justice Sikri is also in line to be a Chief Justice of India in the future. So you are again raising issues. You don't have faith in Justice Sikri and he is going to be the Chief Justice of India. In the same manner, I said Justice Ranjan Gogoi, who is due to be the Chief Justice of India after Chelameshwar retires. So you are just destroying the Supreme Court because of the executive interference, political interference. You are destroying the apex court. And if there are issues, if there are problems in Prasad Education Trust, if there are matters of corruption, what is the harm in getting that investigated? Caesar's wife has to be above suspicion, and when there are talks of corruption in judiciary, let us be honest about it. After all, they also come from the same society. You can say there can be corruption in police, there can be corruption in income tax, there can be corruption in customs, there can be corruption in politics, but not in judiciary. It's high time this iron curtain and this contempt of court sword which hangs on people is removed, and let it also be equally democratic.
That's a very interesting point that you made, Abha Singh, and continuing with that point that you just made, I'd like to take that question with Swapnil Kothari, who's got contrarian views than you. Swapnil Kothari, an order passed by the Vice President, isn't that subject to judicial review or not legally? And what Abha Singh is saying and insinuating is that there is political interference in the judiciary, which is a huge matter of concern, is what her opinion is. And I know you stand to be divided on that point.
Absolutely. Yeah, Chaiti, that's absolutely true, for the simple reason that what Abha is saying is absolutely correct, that there is political interference in the judiciary, and precisely which is why this impeachment motion has been taken out. And what Kapil Sibbal was suggesting when this impeachment, he said that the moment he took out this motion at that point in time, before even it was dismissed by Venkaiah Naidu, he said that the Chief Justice should walk out and should not even step in the court. So that is exactly what he says, that the moment I take out an impeachment motion, he should be demitting office. Only if this motion is then dismissed, or, if a committee is appointed and the committee finds that these allegations are baseless, then he should come back into the court. Now, this is exactly what my point is, that there is political interference to such an extent that today the reputation of the Supreme Court is a bit shaken, especially in the eyes of the people. Now, that is why I am suggesting that to the viewers and to my learned colleagues, both Mr. Khemka and Mrs. Singh, that we want to look a little bit ahead than what is there beforehand. Yes, we have a Chief Justice of India who's due to hear several matters which may be impacting the Congress party, especially the Ayodhya matter, and there are several corruption charges matters before him. So when these are the things, and one very it is not a mere coincidence that the moment Justice Loya's decision comes, the very next day this motion is moved. That means the signatures were taken beforehand, and they were waiting that if the Justice Loya's decision, if the inquiry is constituted to inquire into his death, then this motion would not have seen the light of the day. But the moment that inquiry was quashed,
just want to set the facts correct on that one.
Yeah.
All right, Arunima, no, one second. Arunima will come in on this one. Arunima,
Mr. Kothari, I just want to set the facts correct on that count. Mr. Kothari, yes, as far as moving the motion a day after Judge Loya's order came, that question was asked to Kapil Sibbal and the other opposition leaders when they called the press to tell them that the removal motion has been submitted to the Vice President, and their explanation was that we had sought an appointment with the Vice President at least a week, 10 days before the Judge Loya order came. It's just a matter of coincidence that the Vice President's office gave us an appointment a day after this order has come. So yes, this question was raised and this question was put to them. This is the answer that that they gave. But just to take that point further, what is happening in the courtroom
Well,
right
that's
now?
fine.
The hearing has begun. Arguments are on. Utkarsh Anand, our legal editor, is inside. He will be sending us updates. But the question to be deliberated upon right now is whatever the Supreme Court decides, Mr. Khemka, whatever way the decision goes, the fact is this is doing irreparable damage to the institution of Supreme Court.
Of course, Arunima, listen, Mr. Kothari was saying that recusal is damaging office. According to me, anyone against whom serious charges have been leveled must not be in the chair. We have a rule of suspension. After all the government servants against whom the inquiries are initiated, they are suspended from job. So why should the Chief Justice be sitting in the chair and doing work and dealing with his own case? It is something ridiculous. And it is something, of course, it is a black day in the history of this judiciary. How long will you keep on pushing the things under the carpet? If you see Section 3 of Judges Inquiry Act,
unanimously all of you are on the same page.
Its heading is investigation. It's
One thing is unanimously, whether it's Abha Singh, Swapnil
Its heading
Kothari
is
and Amit
investigation.
Khemka on the same page, is that the perception of the judiciary today stands to be shaken, is something which is a common consensus between all of you who have contrarian views on certain other points as well. In fact, unfortunately, we have to take a very short commercial break. On that note, Utkarsh Anand is inside the court right now, bringing us updates. Arunima is outside the Supreme Court, bringing us all the facts from what's going on. Abha Singh still continues to remain with us. Swapnil Kothari, Amit Khemka. We are on top of the story. CJI impeachment in Supreme Court today. All the updates in just about a bit. Taking a very short commercial break on CNN News 18.